when I first read about the 8,101 genes and I found the paper that you were referring to where they did that research, and then I downloaded all the genes, put it in a spreadsheet to make it searchable. And I read his book and I said, oh, I wonder if there's sirtuin genes in there. And of course there are.
Of course there are.
Yeah. And so his work at it's the Harvard Longevity Institute, I think is the name of it, is to come up with a drug, because they're funded by pharma, to initiate, activate sirtuin genes, which I think he calls them, they're like the EMS group, within this reparative, regenerative process.
Yeah.
And they're going to help the telomeres, is one of it, and DNA repair. And so this drug they're trying to come up with, to me, like I actually signed up to sit down. He was having a free conference up at Harvard, and I was going to go to it. And I was ready to go. It was I think April or May of 2020. And so I was ready to go. I had my flights ready to go, and then COVID hit,
Pandemic.
and then he canceled it. They canceled it. And so, because I was just going to give him a one-page write-up and say, you're trying to come up with a drug, but, oxygen is the drug. And so they won't be interested, of course, because there's no money in it. And
it threatens their whole financial model. And
so being a structural engineer that has been involved in patents most of my career, and I've learned about the patent process and how you patent things, and it doesn't make somebody who is an inventor a genius. It just allows you to take something that's novel, that hasn't been done before, and protect it for a period of time.
Yeah.
Early on, I recognized that oxygen, of course, that it's been around since the second day. Okay, if you read Genesis, you'll see that the atmosphere and clearly oxygen and pressure, came as a package.
Yeah.
Were created here on Earth. And so that patent's long run out. So you're not patenting this. Okay.
Well put. I've never heard it said that way, but that's right.
So
it expired a long time ago.
Yeah, so that's where they glaze over. Oh, we can't overcharge for this. We can't overcharge for this.
That's right.
And then so then there's the process of Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola formula. And that is not telling anybody what you're doing and branding it.
Yep.
And so there are avenues for the industry to follow where they can overcharge if that's what they want to do. But I think one of the points that you touched on earlier is that if you really understand the business plan and you're not giving away 45% of your business, the industry needs to understand that this needs to make money, because people need to live, and you're going to attract higher.
You have to have the business model to make this go.
And you're going to attract higher talent if you can pay them more, and nobody's going to become a billionaire. One of the people in Hyperbaric Oxygen said to me once, if you want to make money in hyperbaric oxygen, start with a lot. Okay, and but the bottom line is this doesn't move forward unless it's a viable business.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we have been saying, and that's what happened in 2007.
Yeah,
you have to have the business model. In fact, we could even have a discussion on the folly of man, and the scientific mentality, especially as applied to American medicine. So I don't know if you remember, have ever seen Boehringer Ingelheim, the big German chemical company. I don't know if they're still Boehringer Ingelheim, but they used to put a chart out, a wall poster that was all the known biochemical reactions in man. And it went, every biology and biochemistry, life sciences lab had the Boehringer Ingelheim chart on there. And it had all these known reactions. Now, it would cover, I don't know how many walls, because we've got 19,000 proteins that are coded for in our DNA. Many of them are enzymes involved in all of these reactions. And our approach to disease is, well, we've got dysfunction with inflammation, and they're all connected. We got dysfunction over here. We're gonna, that's the keystone problem. We're gonna throw a dart at that, and we're gonna develop a single chemical that's gonna interrupt that process and cure your chronic disease. It is such a joke. It's like this sirtuin-1. How many genes do you think are involved with our longevity? And all of the things that get activated under a hormetic stress. I mean, there are probably hundreds of genes, but they're gonna find one that interacts with one gene product that's going to make us live longer.
Well,
it's a joke. It is such a joke.
Well, and then when they promote it, it's going to talk about the side effects.
Oh.
And in the side effects, there will be inflammation.
Of course. But then the side effects are only going to be, this happens at the end of the commercial, consult your doctor. Right.
It's like chemotherapy.
That's
Last side effect they mention is death.
Yeah.
It may kill you. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to take that. Then put me on the list.
But anyways, the whole approach is just, to me, is hilarious. But here we have a therapy that's affecting 8,101, and it's doing it differentially for the ones that are overactive and abnormal in the disease process.
Well, and you also mentioned there could be more. And it's not,
That's right.
Yeah, there could be more. And I believe there are more. And that's what we should be focused on.
Yep.
That's what the Harvard Longevity Institute should be focused on. Find the more.
This was the basis, if you will, of that lecture I gave to A4M in 2004 about hyperbaric oxygen effects on longevity. Where is senescence and aging based? It's in our DNA. And what we have here is a therapy, and this is before Godman, 4 years before. But see, there were a series of articles showing that individually, and we are repairing wounds. You have to be turning on genes to grow new tissue. You have to stimulate the cell to multiply and divide. You got to go through the nucleus. And so my argument was an indirect one based on clinical results, plus there were about, up through 2004, from 94 to about 2004, there were 10 or 15 articles where they had targeted an individual gene product with hyperbaric oxygen and showed that in, exposure to it, it was produced.
That's interesting.
Clearly acting on the DNA.
So there was a lecture that you did, and I want to say it was to medical students. Maybe it was at
Oxygen pressure and gene therapy, maybe?
Well,
That's one of them.
It was really poorly recorded, and it's on the internet.
Oh.
And the only reason I know that is I listened to it probably a dozen times on the treadmill, trying to hear, and you touched on telomeres.
Uh-huh.
And you mentioned you said this could be the fountain of youth, and you said that in that discussion.
Can you send me that link, and what I'll do is do a fresh recording of that lecture, because I got all those lectures stored.
Oh, I have to find it. I want to say this is like, this is 2014, 15. I came back and was like, okay, what has he got? What can I listen to?
But if it's
I'm going to be on the
there,
treadmill. I need to
we
listen to it.
should be able to retrieve it.
I'll search it. I'll search and look for it. But it wasn't recorded. The quality wasn't there. Yeah. But I could hear what you were saying, and I just needed to hear it over and over. So because I wanted to get the terminology, clear in my mind what you were saying.
I can go dig that up. Let me know, because
that was years ago. It had to be.
That's okay. I'll go back and look. And so you think in the 2014 era, because
I'm listening to it in 2014.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It was recorded well before that.
Maybe the A4M one.
It might have been, because it was medical students. The way you were talking to them, you were mentioning something about, they certainly had a medical background. It wasn't a general population at all.
That might have been to LSU, to the emergency medicine. I give an introductory lecture to them, incoming interns.
Well, you use the term, this could be the fountain of youth. And now, of course, you got, Shea of Friday, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
The Israelis are, coming up with a protocol, and they're documenting this, and they've come up with their treatments down at the villages here in the U.S., right? And so for me, it's like, okay, none of that is new.
The Buffalo VA, there was a Dr. Jacobson, published a whole series of articles. There are like 13, 15 articles on dementia leading up into the 70s, and the Buffalo VA one was done on an inpatient unit of these old veterans that they finally had to cage, you know, and because they're wandering and all the rest of this stuff. They did the study on them, and what ended up happening, it was positive. These guys had an improvement in their cognition, but the other thing that happened is their nature came alive. They were grabbing the nurses and propositioning them and so on. And that was one of the reasons they didn't do a follow-up study on it there. And here they had all these guys in this place, and now they're, you know, going after all the nurses. It's like, what do we do? Well, it goes to the whole erectile dysfunction thing as well.
Yeah, we probably should touch on that because that'll bring in business.